The William Hill failures that landed the betting firm with a record multi-million-pound fine. One customer spent £23,000 in 20 minutes, another £18,000 in 24 hours, with no checks on clearly vulnerable customers, leaving William Hill very close to losing its licence. Also this lunchtime, the terror threat in Northern Ireland is raised to severe, meaning an act of politically motivated violence is highly likely. Prince Harry is back in court for his battle against the publisher of the Daily Mail. The moment Audrey Hale burst into a primary school in Nashville, shooting dead 6, including 3 children, and...
White lips, pale face, breathing in snowflakes.
When the cover guy joined the real thing, the YouTuber who got the night of his life with Ed Sheeran on stage.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Charlene White.
Good afternoon. The gambling watchdog has hit William Hill with a record fine for what it called alarming failures at the business. It'll have to pay £19 million for failing to protect its customers. Some were allowed to gamble tens of thousands of pounds without any checks, one in just a few hours. John Ray has our report.
Let me have a look then. £1, 3.
It has never been easier to place a bet. It can feel that there is temptation everywhere. On TV ads, on the high street, and increasingly online. The prospect of beating the odds at the touch of a phone screen, the push of a button, or the spin of a wheel. But today, for one of the best-known names in gambling, a warning from the industry regulator of its duty of care to customers and financial regulations.
We found serious failings in safer gambling controls, in anti-money laundering controls. For example, one customer, brand new customer, opened an account, was able to lose £23,000 in just 20 minutes without any intervention. That's completely unacceptable.
Among the issues uncovered by the Commission was a gambler allowed to open a new account and bet £32,500 over 2 days without any checks. In another instance, a customer lost almost £15,000 in just 70 minutes. And customers were able to place large bets without sufficient checks on the source of their money. Today's record fine is still just a small fraction of the profits generated. One former gambling addict told us the issues are industry-wide.
As someone that's been through addiction and through 12 years of using tons of different gambling companies, not one ever checked on my well-being, asked if I was okay, or asked if I could afford to lose the money that I was losing. And that's the crux of the problem.
William Hill's owners say the failures raised in the report have been addressed since the brand changed hands in 2021. But critics say tougher regulation is long overdue to safeguard the most vulnerable customers who too often become the industry's biggest losers. John Ray, ITV News.
Well, we're joined now from Sheffield by Liz and Charles Ritchie, who lost their son Jack to gambling and now run a charity called Gambling with Lives. Thank you both so much for talking to us about this afternoon. When you look at William Hill's behaviour and the fine, considering the work that you've both been doing, how does that make you feel?
Well, to be honest, it's very little, in the sense that it's just built into the industry's business model. And what's really important, I think, here is that the Gambling Commission do not seem to really take it seriously that this is a health condition. These very dangerous products are designed to cause a major mental health problem from which some people will die. They are explicitly designed to do that. And yet the Gambling Commission frames everything about the losses of large amounts of money. And indeed, Andrew Rhodes said this morning that it's not that many people who lose a large amount of money. It's really not okay. This is the business model. The business model is built on creating an illness in people.
Well, what the Gambling Commission would say is that, as they do repeatedly, that the industry is changing, that they are making sure that things change to lessen those who are impacted on a mental health level by gambling, so that fewer people become addicted. Would you say then they're simply not doing enough?
Well, I think we've been hearing exactly the same story for the past 5 years. There have been numerous fines over that period. We are dealing with the sorts of excesses, the sorts of issues that have been raised this morning around William Hill's every day. You know, that we get a new family approaching us every week. These failures are not historical. The industry has not changed, and actually, until we have really serious action on compliance, which would be revoking licenses, that is not going to change. But we also need to look at prevention. We have to have action on products, making them safer, slowing them down, cutting the stakes you can put on. We need to have affordability checks to prevent people ever getting to the stage where they have developed this life-threatening illness.
And you both have, in the past, tried to talk to William Hill about changes that you feel need to happen. And what was their response when you tried that?
Well, we actually went to see them at their head office. The CEO refused to meet with us. This was fairly soon after Jack had died, and we were trying to warn people. At that point, we were a bit naive, I think, in that we thought, actually, all we had to do was to tell people that this was happening. So we tried to warn them. But as soon as it got to a point where there was any concern that they might lose their profit or it might reduce their profit, we were shown the door very smartly. It was seen out of the building, literally.
So to that end, with gambling companies, not just William Hill, do you foresee a time where mental health is taken seriously and things are done to try and reverse the trend when it comes to people becoming addicted to gambling products?
Well, it's inevitable that's going to have to happen. The problem is how many people are going to die along the way. And, you know, as Charles said, this is not historical. We are getting referrals all the time of very recent deaths. Very recently, I spoke to a mum, and the funeral was only a few weeks ago. You know, we've got deaths from immediately before Christmas. We've got multiple inquests. We're supporting families through inquests. This is happening all the time. There is somebody who dies every day.
I think that there has to be the recognition that gambling needs to be treated as a public health issue. At the moment, gambling is regulated through DCMS, culture, media and sport. It should be really regulated through Department of Health and Social Care. It isn't until we get that there will be the real recognition that we're dealing with health, and that is therefore what needs to drive regulation and change.
Yeah. Well, both Liz and Charles, thank you so much for talking about this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, if anything both Liz and Charles spoke about resonates with you, you can find help and advice and links to charities that help with gambling problems on our website. Just head to itv.com/news. The terror threat in Northern Ireland has been raised from substantial to severe, meaning an attack is highly likely. The Northern Ireland Secretary, Chris Heaton-Harris, urged the public to remain vigilant but not be alarmed. Our political correspondent, Carl Dillon, is over at Westminster for us. Carl, can you talk us through why MI5 has done this?
Yeah, that's right. Although the decision was made by MI5, it was announced, as you say, by Chris Heaton-Harris, the Northern Ireland Secretary. And in his statement, he said, in recent months, we have seen an increase in levels of activity relating to Northern Ireland-related terrorism. That's the reason for this. And what he's talking about there is dissident Republican terrorism. These are the people who think that it is still possible and worth fighting to try and reunite Ireland. And that's the activity that has caused this change. Now, we do know what some of this is. There was an attack last month in Omagh, an attempted murder of DCI John Caldwell. That's the most high-profile attack that we are aware of. But security sources tell me that this is also in reaction to other dissident Republican activity that has not been made public. It's worth mentioning what this is not about, though. This is not, I'm told, about the visit of the US President Joe Biden to Northern Ireland to mark the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, which is coming in the forthcoming weeks. Neither is it because of that anniversary. These dissident Republicans are people who reject the Good Friday Agreement, but it is not because of that. It is because of the uptick in activity by these people in recent months. It is worth putting this in context, though. The severe threat level that we're now at is what Northern Ireland has been at for most of the last most of the last 12 years. It has only been in the last 12 months or so that it had been dropped to substantial. It has gone back up to where it has been for the last decade or more.
OK, Carl, thanks very much. The Duke of Sussex has returned to the High Court in his bid to sue the publisher of the Daily Mail. He's part of a group who claim the newspaper group carried out or commissioned illegal or unlawful information gathering. The publisher denies all the allegations. Rebecca Barry's at the High Court for us. And can you take us through what's happened so far today?
Yeah, Prince Harry is back here at the High Court for day 2 of his legal fight against the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. He came in the side entrance today, but he still waved and greeted the many cameras and journalists who are waiting outside court. This is clearly a story that he wants news outlets to give airtime. He's among 7 high-profile people bringing legal action against associated newspapers, including Baroness Doreen Lawrence, who was also in court today. Prince Harry went up and hugged her at the end of the morning session. The allegations, if proved true, could dwarf previous tabloid scandals like phone hacking, things like breaking and entry, bugging people's homes and cars, listening in to people's live landline calls are among the alleged criminal activities that lawyers claim were employed by associated newspapers. In court, Prince Harry sat listening intently to his barrister as he argued that the judge should allow this to proceed to trial. Associated newspapers say it should be dismissed. They say that the claims have been brought too late and they breach confidentiality orders that were made at the Leveson inquiry. Associated newspapers have also questioned the strength of the evidence, saying that a key witness in the claimant's case, a private investigator, has since switched and now denies the allegations, and the publisher says it vigorously denies all of the claims against it.
OK, Rebecca, thank you. To the United States now, and police in Nashville have said the former student who shot dead 6 people, including 3 children, at a Christian elementary school had planned the attack meticulously. Audrey Hale had drawn a detailed map of the school, conducted surveillance and written a manifesto. Good morning. Britain's North America correspondent Noel Phillips reports from Nashville.
10 o'clock on a Monday morning. Security cameras capture former student Audrey Hale at the start of a 14-minute bloody rampage. Blasting their way into this small primary school, it is a chilling sight. The 28-year-old shooter pacing through the corridors, armed with 2 guns and a pistol.
We've also determined there were maps drawn of the school in detail of surveillance, entry points, etc.
Hale gunned down 3 9-year-old children and 3 adults. Head teacher Catherine Kreutz, Mike Hill and Cynthia Peake. 6 victims, the latest to join a roll call of a senseless massacre. Terrified children, holding each other's hands, were led away from the school where they once felt safe. Their parents gathered at a nearby church, desperate to be reunited. President Biden again called for lawmakers to take urgent action, but the reality of a divided Congress means this is unlikely.
We have to do more to stop gun violence. It's ripping our communities apart, ripping the soul of this nation, ripping at the very soul of the nation.
The First Lady also called for change.
I am truly without words, and our children deserve better.
while this mass shooting survivor interrupted a press conference with this message.
How is this still happening? How are our children still dying, and why are we failing them?
In the coming hours, investigators will provide answers as to why Audrey Hale has ripped so many lives apart, leaving a trail of death and destruction behind. This is the 129th mass shooting this year alone. A grim statistic, but one unlikely to herald any change to stop this all too familiar tragedy. Noel Phillips, ITV News, Nashville.
In the last half hour, the government has announced Afghan refugees staying in hotels will be moved into permanent new homes. Veterans Minister Johnny Mercer made the announcement in the Commons as he pledged £35 million for the scheme. 90,000 people could be affected. The Refugee Council says it's concerned some people could be made homeless if they don't accept the government's offer. And Humza Yousaf is set to become Scotland's First Minister after he was elected SNP leader. MSPs in the Scottish Parliament will vote in the next hour to confirm his position, which would make him the 6th First Minister since devolution and the first ethnic minority leader of a devolved government. The mother of a 10-year-old boy who was killed by a dangerous dog is taking her fight for tighter breeding laws to Parliament. Jack Liss suffered unsurvivable injuries in the attack by an American bully dog after going to a house to play in South Wales in November 2021. The dog, named Beast, was shot and killed by armed police and was later confirmed as not being a banned breed. In the days leading up to the attack, Beast's owners, Brandon Hayden and Amy Salter, had been caught on CCTV struggling to keep him under control. The pair were jailed last summer for 4.5 years and 3 years respectively and banned from owning a dog indefinitely. Well, Jack's mum, Emma Whitfield, is in Parliament today to fight for tightening breeding laws, and she joins us now. Emma, thanks so much for talking to us this lunchtime. Can you talk us through what it is about the current laws that you want to see changed?
So, at the moment, it's kind of anyone and everyone can breed dogs, they can sell dogs, and absolutely anyone can own them. And I want to see change around everything, even as far as sentencing.
Now, what many people, I think, probably won't understand is if current figures continue, the high numbers of people needing treatment after being bitten by dogs are about to reach a record high, which will be 10,000 across 12 months. Do you think that people really understand the impact of dog attacks?
I think people understand. I just think there's an element of maybe people higher up not wanting to do anything about it yet, which is why I'm here today.
So do you think over the years the government has perhaps not taken it seriously enough? I mean, we had an attack just over the weekend with a young girl in Manchester, and earlier on this year, a 6-year-old who was killed after being attacked. Do you think over the years perhaps the government has become complacent when it comes to dealing with legislation with dog attacks?
I think so, yes. I mean, there's certain MPs, for example, my local MP, Wayne David, who are calling for change. And I think, like this today now, will hopefully raise awareness to other MPs so they come round to the ideas as well, and in the hope that, yes, something will change and these attacks will stop.
Well, Jack only died. He was only killed 2 years ago, and despite your grief, you've mounted this incredible campaign. Where do you find the strength for that?
In Jack. So I try and use my feelings there as my drive forward, and I just don't want anyone to go through what I've been through and what we've been through as a family.
And do you think he'd be really proud of his mum's fight for justice?
I think so, yeah. I'm not quite sure he'd understand any of it, but yeah.
I think what you're doing will impact so many families' lives, and I'm sure you've met so many of them who are behind you in this fight. So Emma, good luck over at Parliament today, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
OK, finally, so the singer left speechless after he was plucked from the front row at an Ed Sheeran concert to perform with the superstar on stage. Sangeeta Kandola has a story of how this A-team came together.
This guy who's front row here called Luke, who covers my songs, and I see him on YouTube all the time, and I saw you today, man. Do you want to come up and sing the A-team? Everyone say hi to Luke.
Hello. This is the moment Ed Sheeran's super fan Luke Gittin had been waiting for.
I'm on white lips, pale face, breathing in snowflakes.
Luke brought his A-game though as he performed the A-team with Ed Sheeran at the O2 in front of 20,000 people.
Well, now, Luke, do you want to see what 20,000 lights looks like from up here? Do you want to ask them to get their lights out?
Can you put your lights out?
Luke got to experience what it felt like to be a superstar on stage and said he was speechless. Well, just a few hours earlier, he'd been doing this. Luke had been in the queue for the concert at the O2, recording a cover version of Ed Sheeran's new track, Eyes Closed. He uploaded it to YouTube, but didn't know Ed had seen it, spotted him in the crowd, and decided to cut him a break. Ed Sheeran says he sees himself in Luke, who's doing just what he did, making cover versions of famous songs from famous artists, in the hope his talent and original material gets noticed. In the meantime, Luke says his Sheeran on-stage experience was so amazing, it's inspired him to keep going and keep writing.
Everyone make some noise for Luke Gittins!
Sangeeta Kandola, ITV News.
That's it this lunchtime. Mary's here with the evening news at 6:30. The news where you are follows the national weather, but from everybody here on the lunchtime team, bye-bye.